So yeah, Curse of the Mummy's Tomb.
What a recommendation. Holy crap, Tom. I never heard of it before.
Now, how did that one escape your notice? Because I know, you've got a lot of the Hammer horror. And I didn't realize it was a Hammer one.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Like,
and the like a Hammer horror mummy, like the classic with Christopher Lee as the mummy and stuff.
Love that one.
We've watched those kind of things, but like this one, I didn't know. It just I just kind of stumbled upon it.
What a find! Like sometimes it's with the titles. I think I've seen one, or
exactly.
Like, they get mixed up, and like
because there's like so many mummy movies and. Like there's a bunch, and I'm working my way through like the black and white ones too, and there's like a bunch of them too, and I'm not sure which order to watch them because I was watching one of them, I forget which, like if it's like the Mummy's Ghost or the Mummy's this or the Mummy's that.
Hand.
Yeah, and it was showing, it wasn't the Mummy's Hand, because that's the one that comes right after the Boris Karloff first Mummy. So I need to watch the Mummy's Hand, but I was watching this one, and like a bunch of stuff was happening in it really fast. And I was like, wait a second. And what I realized is like, I'm watching clips from like the previous like 2 or 3 Mummy movies to catch me. So it's like a lot of stuff happens in like the first 5 minutes. And I was like, whoa. Yeah, Curse the Mummy's Tomb.
The cast is great. And it does stuff like we talked about it, and I think in maybe another at some point along the way, like in the original Mummy, you want mummy action.
Yeah.
You want the mummy to like do that like cool shit, and the Mummy does like all the quintessential mummy stuff in this movie, busting through walls. Like,
here's what blew me away with it, because you talk about the great cast, and there's great characters, especially like one of those like great characters that you love in a horror movie where it's like this. Kind of like this American vulgarian who like wants to make a quick buck off of the mummy, and he's kind of like thumbs up all the way and stuff. Like that guy's great, and like you're waiting for his comeuppance or whatever.
Really, like his acting and his performance in this movie is pretty modern. Yeah. Like you feel like he could have been plopped into like he feels like a J.K. Simmons.
He does feel like J.K. Simmons. That's great. Like. I've watched a lot of Mummy movies, and I like the Mummy as a character. I know he's sort of like the least loved of like the Universal monsters, but I like the Mummy. I like the whole like Egyptian motif and everything.
Me too.
I love the Mummy, but like I think this might be my favorite Mummy movie now. I
think you're fucking right, Tom. It's mine too.
So
it has. There's beats in this that I recognize, like stuff on like the boat, if I remember correctly, or like there was just beats that I saw pulled into like the Stephen Sommers like Brendan Fraser Mummy. Mm-hmm. Like I'm like they're pulling from this one.
Yeah.
And like the violence is like great, like gore, like people get their hands chopped off, like good special effects.
Well, you know what made me realize how much I was enjoying it was that it's a really long time before you see the Mummy show up, and start like, doing his mummy stuff. And that usually drives me crazy. Like, I want to see the Mummy as early as possible and stuff. But this was like, I feel like this is probably like the longest you have to wait to see the Mummy in action. And I didn't miss him one bit. Like I'm on the edge of my seat the whole time.
I love in the movies where people are like controlling a mummy.
Yeah.
And like that happens in the Tales from the Dark Side episode where Christian Slater's like controlling a mummy. Mm-hmm. And I had to like, I'm like, how did I miss this? I had to look up a list of complete list of mummy movies. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so I'm going to go on a mummy kick now.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. And it was this movie that sent me to it. Here's the things that make this a cut above. So yeah, you have those great performances, but the movie opens I think it's like the credit sequence with this POV shot of like entering the tomb. You're entering the tomb and you're seeing all the cobwebs parting and this and that. And so it's like just so visceral, just kind of like working your way into the tomb. You're in it. And it is like the camera work in this is amazing. The placement of shots is amazing. There's a lot of like low shots, and just the way the camera moves through this world just creates this real sense of dread. And then the first and the build up to like when this guy who's like like the guy in King Kong or whatever, where he's gonna put on a mummy show, and like he's gonna open the tomb, he's gonna open the sarcophagus.
He was a Geraldo Rivera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that is just so beautiful. And then when the mummy shows up for the first time, it's like a genuine surprise. Like you're kind of going up these steps, and you really don't expect it, And yeah, the mummy hits him with a chair.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Geraldo, how did you get that wound? He's like, a mummy cracked
a throne on my head. Yeah, all through this movie, there's that, and there is like this. All goes back to like Dracula and stuff, because like the mummy kind of had like the Dracula plot of this like ancient evil dude who is trying to seduce this young girl and turn her into like one of his, turn her into a mummy or turn her into a vampire or whatever, and the sort of like the seduction in this one is like really interesting too, and it does become this kind of like we've seen that trope a number of times where you have like sort of the Jonathan Harker, and then you have the Mina, and then you have the vampire, or the mummy version of it. We've seen it so many times, but I thought it was like really well done here, and it kind of sneaks up on you.
Definitely, and there's also the whodunit aspect.
Yeah,
which always like it's like who's.
Yeah, because it wasn't just like a mummy on the loose, because it was like somebody kind of manipulating the mummy or directing the mummy. It does become a whodunit. The sets look amazing,
God,
and again
sets.
with the kind of like filming that they're doing and stuff, like the sets look amazing. I just like it felt like kind of like it was like one of those Hammer movies, but kind of like set free, and like those Hammer movies are pretty lively.
They are.
So like had that thing of like hosing down the set, where like everything kind of glistens.
And then after, Tom, if you haven't watched it, after I was inspired to watch the Hammer Phantom of the Opera.
Okay, I've never seen that.
It's awesome, and it looked just as lush as the Curse of the Mummy's tomb.
The mummy was real scary looking too. Like he was kind of like the he was kind of like the Christopher Lee mummy, where he had like most of his face. You didn't see his mouth or anything.
Like paper mache.
Yeah, he was kind of like
very creepy.
Yeah, you couldn't see his eyes either.
I thought the mummy in the Curse of the Mummy's tomb was even scarier. Tom, I think it's my favorite mummy movie.
Well, the Christopher Lee one, it's kind of like knowing that it's Christopher Lee is kind of comforting.
Yeah,
it is.
You're right.
And he moves like Christopher Lee. He's got where this mummy just kind of like shows up.
Oh yeah, like he's like the ghost from. He's supposed to be a mummy, but he's like a ghost from like a Christmas Carol. He just has like the bandages around his head.
All the characters in it, like I was very interested. Again, like most of these movies, it's like all that stuff's throwaway. But I was like very interested in all of the characters. Like they were all compelling. Like even some of the peripheral characters. Like I mean, like the girl, obviously she's a very very important character in it. But like I was kind of fascinated with her. But then even like her father, he was kind of like an interesting presence. And just like all the various people who show up in it.
And it had like some other mummy movies would stay on different areas too long, like they'd be in like the dig site for too long,
right?
Or be like in somebody's study for too long. Like everything was they fit everything in there in just the right amounts.
Yeah,
Tom, it's a perfect mummy movie.
Yeah, so Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. Check it out. It's real easy to get it lost in the sea of mummy movies, but but probably my favorite mummy movie.
It inspired me to do my due diligence to really like hammer down which mummy movies I've seen.
Yeah. Well, I rewatched the Karloff Mummy. I was always kind of underwhelmed by that movie. Again, because not enough mummy like all the kind of mummy stuff is later movies. But you just kind of get like the one shot of him, and then you see like the bandages in the background. But this was the first time I'd seen it with the projector.
Oh, I was gonna say you projected
and
that.
It comes to life. First of all, like just seeing, because that little scene where he's like wrapped up and his eyes, like you see the detail. You're able to see and so it's very terrifying. Like before watching it on TV, it didn't register as much, but you see his eyes kind of slowly open, and his hands kind of quiver.
Great like when I was in middle school, we did like Mummy Week or something, or like Egyptian Week, and one of the days they projected the Karloff mummy
Okay.
in the auditorium. It was on a huge, it might have been like, it was like bigger than like, I don't know, the screen was enormous. And it was like, all the lights were off and like the curtains were hanging there. And it was like, it was one of the best like school movies. Like,
Yeah.
it looked,
That sounds awesome.
It was so cool. Like,
That, yeah, like seeing it big, like, and again, that's, you know, when that movie came out, that's how it was presented. You know, like you're seeing it on the screen in the theater. Like nobody had a TV back then, so it's like that's how you would see it. And you know, I could see how it would stick with you because it is very intimate. You know, when all of this, there's these very tiny movements going on, and that whole scene is like super tense. Like this time around, it was like very tense as he's like reading the inscription and all this stuff, and then after that. Like that becomes just kind of prologue where like that guy, that happened like 20 years ago or something, you know.
And the mummification scene always stuck with me too, where he's being like wrapped up. I was like disturbed by that.
Well, like also seeing it projected large when Karloff shows up, like, you know, later in the movie, it you know, he just looks like a dude, you know, he just looks pretty normal, but watching it, like you do real big, you do get a better look at all the like little cracks and stuff like in his face that are, because it is, again, it's a subtle makeup job, you know, compared to like Frankenstein or something. So yeah, it was really great. And yeah, again, like the flashbacks of the guy getting mummified and stuff, that stuff was real interesting. And you know what else was interesting to me about it was it was kind of like a metatextual aspect or something. But when they're showing those flashbacks, the flashbacks are presented sort of in the style of like what movies were like, you know, 10, 20 years prior to that. You know, so it's the act, the performances and the pace and the sort of pantomime felt like a silent movie.
Yes.
So it was like, this was the first time it kind of struck me that like, oh yeah, they're looking at, you know, it's a flashback. He's looking into the past. So what would the past, you know, be in this time of this medium? And it's like, oh, we want to conjure up the past. Let's film it like a silent movie, which, you know, they sort of had just gotten out of that era, you know?
That's
like,
awesome.
and that never, you know, kind of occurred to me. But it's like the acting and everything. It's like, oh, they are deliberately acting in a stylistic way to mimic,
like subconsciously bring the audience
exactly let the audience know that this is not the here and now, this is the past.
That's so
that was
awesome.
one like extra layer to it.
I'm going on a mummy run here.
Yeah.
The Curse of the Mummy's diaper.
the mummy's making a comeback. You heard it here first. The mummy's making a comeback.
When we were in elementary school, we would walk around the halls like dragging our feet, and we would do this thing called the mummy, where we would go like this and just pull our faces back.
Yeah,
it was called the mummy.
You know, I was reading this like book about mummies and stuff like that, and it was real depressing to me because it's like being mummified or whatever.
God.
That's like the best case scenario is that, okay, like of like a human body that like, okay, 1,000 years later or something, like your body's still there, and then you see these mummies and they're just so like wasted away.
Oh yeah,
and, like desiccated and like, you know, they have all their guts and stuff pulled out, and it's like it's like this is as good as a human body is going to look 1,000 years from. So it's like, what's that mean for us? Like we're all just going to be dust. We're going to be a gross mess, an unrecognizable mess 1,000 years from now. Like you know, the thing we could aspire to is being mummified and then looking like this disgusting like melted wax dummy or whatever. It was kind of sobering to realize that like, oh yeah, this is like, you know, on a good day, this is what somebody would look like.
Yeah, it's like, that is a sobering thought. It's like, yeah, in that time period, it's like, yeah, the best it's going to get is your brains are going to be pulled out of your nose with a hook. Shit.
Yeah. Just the whole mummy thing in general, it's got a real leg up because it has the whole like Egyptian mythology and stuff and iconography and pyramids and stuff kind of built into it, which is so rich, where like, you know, like the vampire mythology is sort of interesting and fun, but like I don't think nothing's as like lush as the Egyptian stuff.
And like mummies pair well with fire.
Right, yeah, like
Fire pairs really well with a mummy.
it's like a very satisfying way to like dispose of, you know, this monster. It's like, yeah, chucking a torch at
it, and then like someone's always controlling it with like some kind of like object. I love
Yeah,
that.
they got some kind of ring or something.
Tom, the mummies. This is 2023. Halloween is the season of the mummy.
Yeah, the Mummy series. Like, I loved that first Brendan Fraser Mummy.
Oh yeah,
I didn't really like any of the other ones, but I love that first one. And you know, because the Mummy is so like thoroughly CGI now, like the Mummy, it's like such a great thing to do, like, you know, with practical effects. And it's like, I want to see like I want to see the return of the practical Mummy.
Yes, like if someone's looking for a quick one shot for a mummy, they should watch Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
Okay.
There's the Christian Slater episode.
Okay.
Where he has dealings with a mummy.
Do you see what they call the creature from the Black Lagoon? They call him Gill Man. I guess like creature from the Black Lagoon. First of all, it's not universal, but like creature from the Black Lagoon is like too much of a mouthful. You can call him Gill Man.
They're like Gilbert.
Yeah, Gilbert. That's what he was on the Munsters. It was Uncle Gilbert.
Oh my god, I didn't know.
Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, and we'll report back on some more Mummy movies.
Definitely.
Just like if you want to see some cool cinematography and amazing sets and some great performances, you know, it's the drama of it is really good. And if you removed the supernatural elements, it is kind of interesting, you know, just as like just seeing some people living in the world and interacting with each other.
And like King Kong kind of, he's like bringing
yeah, it's got the King Kong thing. Like that was a good twist on it to
I like that.
add that.
Yeah, the American, he's like
yeah, he's blowing cigar smoke in everybody's face. Yeah. And again, it was a British production, you know, these Hammer films. So it is like, they're going to be looking askance at the American. The American is going to be this big, like, vulgar oaf who's like, just like waving a stack of bucks in your face, like smacking your cheeks with a wad of cash, you know?
Yeah, like, I pull out my communion money.
Right, yeah.
I saw
it's like a... the sweet smell of do-re-mi.
Hey, can I get a little walking around money? Let me pull out my wise guy wad.
And the sort of like British guy, like the most British guy in the movie is kind of getting sidelined and like kind of, you know, sir, you know, and getting, you know, pushed to the periphery, and his hot French girlfriend is you know, kind of isn't interested in him. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. And I have a Kickstarter that's going to launch Friday the 13th in October, and it's for a new superhero comic called WITCHMAN. Follow the link to support that campaign and help me make this thing a reality.
I'm at Zeoli.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Tom_Scioli, on Twitter at Tom Scioli, and support my Patreon. Go to patreon.com and search Tom Scioli.
Follow the show on Instagram at total_recall_show.
And yeah, we'll see you at the Mummy's Tomb.
Yeah, we just opened that tomb. Nothing's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
There's no problemo.
Yeah.